Life is a journey, and for Nicola, her journey allowed her to discover her identity, which led her into politics. Give it up for Nicola Spurling.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I wish I was as charismatic as the other folks up on stage, but unfortunately I'm a politician. So, and I also wish that I had a very polished speech here tonight, but I don't because I'm in the middle of a campaign. So I would like to speak to you about the journey of transitioning and how that led me into politics. And that started by meeting my biological family. I have 2 gay uncles, and they convinced me that I should be volunteering with Vancouver Pride. So I showed up at my first Vancouver Pride event back in 2013, and the first thing that I was asked was, what are your pronouns? Well, I didn't know what that meant, so I asked, and I was immediately told about trans people and what it means to be trans, and something at that point clicked. But it took me another 2 years before I realized exactly who I was and before I started my transition process. I joined Vancouver Pride initially as a volunteer. I then worked my way up onto the board of directors, and that's where I currently sit. Now, working my way up onto the board meant that I was slowly working my way up the ranks in the volunteer community and making lots of connections. I got to know Devin and Jill over here through that process, and eventually I started working on the Trans Equality Now campaign. And that, if you don't already know, was a campaign to add gender identity and gender expression to the BC Human Rights Code, the Human Rights Act of Canada, and the Criminal Code of Canada, all of which has now been done. Now, I know that many people in this room have probably been involved in that campaign, or at least been aware of it and pushing for these changes, so this is huge for our community, and it's something that I'm very proud of. Now, through that process, I managed to catch the attention of Andrew Weaver, who's the leader of the BC Green Party, and he called me up and he asked me to run for provincial politics. And I should back up a little bit here, because before he called me, I had had a little bit of a rough few months, and the reason for that was I just socially transitioned a few months beforehand. I'd just gone through having surgery, and I was still in the recovery period, and now he's asking me to be involved in a political campaign, which is taxing at the best of times. So I decided the best way for me to make my social transition is in the public eye. So what I did was I consulted with friends and family. I had Andrew asking me about 8 times if I would run for his party. I said no 7 times, and on the 8th time I said yes. And it was really down to the advice that I received from friends, family, and also from MLA Spencer Shanda Herbert, who I'm sure many of you know. And he said, if it feels right, if it feels like the right time, do it. And I thought, you know what? It does feel like the right time. I'm going to do this. So I spent the next few months campaigning for the BC Greens, knowing full well I wasn't going to win the election. I'm running for a Green Party in an area that is split between NDP and Liberals. So there was no chance for me. But I knew that I wanted to stick with my values. I knew that the values of the party aligned with me, and I wanted to help to raise the profile of the party. Well, I managed to do that because in the middle of the election I ended up being outed on a national level as transgender. That was a tough experience to go through, but for anyone entering politics, you know that people are going to dig up secrets about you. So it was something I was prepared for. I had a speech all ready for when it happened. I didn't expect it to be on such a large scale, but because of that, my preparedness and my having planned that ahead of time meant that I ended up receiving massively positive messages from across the country, from the US, from England, all over the place. And it made me realize that I'd made a good decision and that people really cared about the message that I was spreading. So after that, I decided, where do I go from here? So I ended up pushing for a rainbow crosswalk in my community because Coquitlam, many of you don't already know, it's not really seen as a queer-friendly area. And I wanted to change that. And through that process, I realized we have quite a dysfunctional council in Coquitlam. And there was a lot of pushback. There was a lot of political spin that happened during the process of getting that approved. And at the end of the day, we ended up getting the crosswalk, and that's something I'm really proud of. But it also meant that there was a lot of work that I saw that needed to be done at the municipal level. And there was work that I wanted to be involved in. So I started going to public hearings. I started speaking on behalf of making sure that diversity in Coquitlam is recognized, making sure that we have a council that reflects the people of our city, making sure that we're putting in affordable housing because it's low income and marginalized people that are the most affected by our housing crisis. So that was something that I started pushing for. At that time, I still hadn't decided if I was going to run municipally or not. I thought, I need a break. You know, a campaign takes it out of you. I developed stress-induced vertigo during the last campaign, and I thought, I don't know if I can do this again. But because of how dysfunctional our council was, because of the pushback that I received, because I want to see better collaboration in politics, I want to see an end to the slates that we currently have on our council, I thought I need to do my part. I need to try to address this in whatever way I can, whether that's raising awareness or whether that's putting my name forward for council. And in the end, I decided to put my name forward, and that's where I'm at right now. I am running for Coquitlam City Council out in Coquitlam, obviously, and I'm hoping that my message of diversity, inclusion, and collaborative politics is going to resonate in my area. And so I'm encouraging all of you here to get out and vote on October 20th. I know you probably don't live in Coquitlam, but it's still important to exercise your democratic right. So please get out, vote, and I hope that me standing here in front of you telling my story is an example of the fact that you can be the change you want to see in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola. A little bit about Nicola. Nicola Spurling is the owner of NES Design and Construction.